All right, says we're live. All right, so this is just gonna. I'll try this for a couple weeks. We'll see how far it goes. Now that the chase is here, and it's probably bound to be a lot more exciting for this year than it is for than last year. I figured this might be a good time to maybe once a week do a preview of the upcoming races and do reviews of the races once they've passed by. So it'll just be me and TJ here. Um, all right. How you doing, buddy? Just before we start, everything good?
I'm all right. I agree. I think this chase is going to be really stupid, but in an entertaining way. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
actually looking forward to it.
I will say this, and I think you and I are both probably about as big critics of Brian France as can possibly be. But I'll give him credit for this year. He's made some good adjustments. He has. I think they just announced today that they're going to put harder penalties for chase drivers. I didn't look into the specifics though. I can probably pull up the page.
Yeah.
Because obviously with last year, I mean, Harvick shouldn't even been at Homestead if anything. He should have been kicked out right after that
Oh
bullshit move
yeah.
at Talladega.
I agree.
There's
But
no.
NASCAR they have set a pretty lousy precedent for like um determining intent in instances like that. Like even with Clint Boyer and like Richmond in 2013, where he like obviously spun himself out, and they just like gave him a slap on the wrist and said, there wasn't conclusive evidence
Yeah,
that
that
he
like
was like, if that's not good enough, then nothing is going to be good enough.
they had an in-car camera on him, and I remember they had guys like who were like I think Rusty Wallace was calling it out, like he was a previous driver. Like you can see like the way his legs moved, like took his gas right off. He took his foot right off the accelerator and put it right on the gas while turning. Like that's if that doesn't
Yeah,
say I'm spinning out intentionally, like nothing will. That's
yeah,
about as clear of an indication as one could possibly give.
yeah,
I'm
and
actually like that's amazing. He got away with it, even with the evidence right there in front of everybody's faces, right there as he had the in-car camera right in his cockpit. I mean, that's unbelievable when you
yeah,
really think about it. But then, I mean, the whole reason why this system exists the way it is now is, I think, because of Jimmy Johnson. They want to take away some of his advantages. Although, when you really look at it, if he makes it into the elimination eight round, that pretty much gives him all the advantages because those are three of his best tracks right there. I mean,
yeah,
the Fall Texas race, he's won there 4 years in a row. So, I mean, the whole point, I think, of this chase system is just hoping that Johnson doesn't make it through at least the first two rounds. That's the entire purpose. That's their only hope, really, of trying to contain Johnson. But as long as he's kind of forced to win at Homestead, that's kind of another way to stop him too.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's their only. I think he's really been slacking. Ever since 2013, that team has been really off their game. Um, and I think his career is just like
Yeah,
declining much quicker. Now that
than he
he's
thought.
I don't know close to 40 or something.
I think he's ever
So
going to make it. He's at 77 career wins. I think I really don't want to see him get close to Gordon's mark at 93. And yeah, I think that's probably looking good right now. I was a little scared when he really got up to a good start this year with those. I think he got 2 wins in the first 5 races, but I mean we'll probably get into Johnson later. But that's one thing that kind of gives me a little bit of hope.
yeah, I don't know. I think he'll be good for like 2 to 3 wins a season for about 5 more years, and then
And then it'll just be like Gordon, where it's like maybe 1 win a year if he's
yeah,
lucky.
yeah,
Yeah. All right, so I guess I'll just start off with the 16 drivers, and I'll just go kind of in chronological order from where they finished off in the regular season. So I guess I'm going to start off with Kyle Busch. Just kind of maybe for each of the 16 drivers, sort of just give like a general overview for the chase, and then focus obviously on their Chicagoland stats. I actually I took those stats in front of me here. Bush has 11 starts at Chicagoland, 1 win back in 2008, 4 top 5s, 6 top 10s, and his average finish is 11.4. That's one of the best actually compared to the other 15 drive. It's up there. It's not the best average finish, but it's one of the better ones. I think he's in the top 3 or 4. I'd probably have to look through the entire list. I mean, I think, yeah, it's been a while since Busch has really made a show at Chicagoland, but I think this might be one of his best chances in a while.
Well, he ran well last year. I mean, he led the most laps last year, and then I don't remember what the problem was. I think he just got shuffled back on pit stops. And the Gibbs Gibbs package in general at every track they go to has been really strong. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to see him, back up last year's performance and maybe win it. But the thing is, it seems like a lot of other teams are starting to gain momentum and find more speed as the season goes on to challenge them more often. So I don't know.
Overall, if I had to say for the chase, I don't really think I think he might have a shot at getting to Homestead, but I don't think he's up for winning again. Busch just isn't that good in the chase. I mean, remember that win at Homestead last year? That's his only win ever while in the chase.
Yeah.
People seem to forget that a lot. He always struggles in the chase, but because of the way the new system is, he's able to rely on luck. And I mean, even if you look back through Busch last year, he was barely making the cuts for each round.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can really honestly predict how anybody's gonna fare with this format. I mean, I don't think anybody would have seen Jimmy Johnson get knocked out at Dover last year in round 1, but stuff like that is just going to become the norm. You're just going to have huge surprises like that. So all you can really go off is past performances there, but that only gets you so far. But I don't know. I agree. I mean, Kyle Busch historically has sucked in the chase. He had 8 wins in 2008, and then
he
completely choked.
He choked those first 3 races. I think it was Loudon, Dover, and Kansas. Just the worst possible outcomes in all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and not only that, but Kyle Busch, if he starts having a bad week or 2 bad weeks, he turns into an absolute pariah with his team, and it's going to ruin whatever motivation they have to improve. So
remember that shit he did back at Texas? I think it was 2010. He sped on pit road, then refused to come in. Oh, sorry, after he came in, he flipped off the NASCAR officials and then got penalized again, and then just refused to come in until about 5 laps.
Yeah.
Until the picker had to yell at him over just to get in. Now, to be fair, he has matured over the last 5-6 years, but I mean, again, now that he's in his 30s, maybe he's a little different. But it was entertaining to watch him back in those earlier years when he was still the kind of the bitch. Well, he still kind of is a bitch even now.
Yeah, I don't know.
But he was more of a bitch back then. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, I think the reason people think he matured is because he won a lot of races last year, and he was, he had success, so he was relatively happy. Whereas, I mean, as soon as things go bad, he turns into the same crybaby that everybody knows him to be. So we'll see. I mean, if he gets knocked out first round of the chase, I think we could witness a historic Kyle Busch meltdown.
Oh my god. Maybe it'll be a total regression. All right, so next one is so hold on. Actually, never mind now. So for Keselowski, that's the next one. He has 8 starts at Chicagoland, 2 wins. That's actually pretty impressive to win. I mean, that's actually the best win to start ratio. 1 for every 4 race, 1 win for every 4 starts at Chicagoland. 2 top 5s, his 2 wins. And he's got 5 top 10s. His average finish is 9.1. I think Keselowski's probably going to get top 5, unless if anything goes wrong. He's obviously shown this to be one of his better tracks.
Yeah, I mean, he ran really, really well at Las Vegas, which is slightly comparable.
I don't think Vegas really. The thing with what makes Chicagoland different is it's not a straight backstretch. It's actually a curvy one.
Yeah, well, it's a lot bumpier than Las Vegas or Kansas is.
Yeah,
but it's like typically Vegas and Kansas are indicative of like a good run at Chicagoland.
Right. He's got 2 wins at Vegas. I think he's got 1 win at Kansas, but his win at Kansas was like a fuel efficiency.
Yeah, but he ran pretty well at Kansas this year. He obviously won Las Vegas, and he won Kentucky. I
He
mean,
won
if we're
3
going
at
to talk about
Kentucky.
mile and a halves,
He's
like
a
their mile and a half program has been pretty good. I mean, it's not great. It's not like Joe Gibbs level just yet, but
Well, Logano's
um,
not exactly. It's really more for Keselowski. Logano's really not that impressive at the 1.5s. He's really better at the 2 milers, the restrictor plates,
yeah, it depends. I mean, Logano.
and
Well,
Bristol.
yeah, I don't know where Logano. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Logano has not shown a lot of speed lately. He had 1 win at Michigan, but otherwise he's actually,
Yeah.
like he makes his money on restarts. But other than that, that team isn't that fast at the moment. So I don't know.
The thing with Keselowski is, it is, I think yeah, I will say this. I do like Kyle Busch. I think both him and Keselowski will be in the final four, mostly because Keselowski. I mean, he's come so close in both. He's made it to the Elimination Eight the first 2 times they've done this format, and the only reason he's been able to miss out on the Championship Four is because of being passed by Jimmy Johnson at Texas.
Well, that and like he had two really terrible races at Martinsville for the
Yeah.
past 2 years. He had a mechanical failure in both of them that put him in a huge deficit.
Well, no, this time was last year it was a crash.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, mechanical failure. You're right.
Well,
But
sometimes
a
there's two.
DNF of some sort.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't even think it was a DNF. He finished several laps behind because he had to spend time in the garage. But
Yeah.
but that's the thing with Keselowski. Like Martinsville is such a horrible. It's always been a horrible track for him. That's so like he's kind of forced into that Phoenix. He's not that good at Phoenix either. Like he's kind of forced into a position of either winning at Kansas or yeah. I mean, not sorry, winning at Texas. Like
Yeah,
not
Texas.
even. I mean, what he's got. It's what a second place last year, third place the year before. It's just not enough.
Well, he won Texas. No, wait, no, never
No,
mind.
he has
I'm
never
thinking.
won. He has never
Yeah,
won
I
at
was thinking.
Texas.
I was thinking when he finished second. Yeah.
I mean, he's been able to be dominant at Texas, but he's never been able to win it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this year he's looking for better finishes at Martinsville, at least probably a top 5 at Texas, and as long as he can keep it close to within the top 10 at Phoenix, he should be good.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he's got to. He's really got to work on I don't know, staying on good terms with all the other drivers though, because Matt Kenseth proved last year you don't
That
want
was
to
like
piss
that was
certain
the year
people off.
that was the year
It doesn't
before.
matter how good you are.
That was actually in 2014.
No, but I mean when Kenseth took out Logano, it
yeah.
proved that if you piss somebody off the wrong way, they're going to take you out of the chase completely. So,
Yeah.
and Keselowski is already starting to kind of agitate some of those people again.
Oh, really?
So,
I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. I know he agitated Kenseth last week at Richmond. Better be careful there. Especially,
yeah.
speak of the devil, Matt Kenseth.
Yeah.
Probably not good. Yeah, I know. He's always had the feud with Hamlin. So I've never seen Hamlin as someone to really ruin someone else's championship hopes. I've never seen Hamlin to do that kind of thing, but we also thought Gordon was never that kind of guy either.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it at this point. I think it'd be kind of hilarious if you just like every round you had somebody like kamikaze another driver out of the chase. Because I almost kind of don't care about the integrity of NASCAR anymore. But
I know. Yeah, same here. Same here. Although I am under the belief that there is a possibility that it could be reachieved. Although I'm a little skeptical of that.
yeah, if Brian France dies a horrible death,
I know.
and
I'm just
actually him and like what's his name, Mike
Helton.
Mike Helton, if they both die, like in a car crash, then
Well, yeah, opposite. Oh, like head-on collision. Like and
right.
like two cars. Yep, I know. That's like the ultimate dream, I guess, for some NASCAR fans. Like,
Because Mike Helton is pretty bad too.
really, I've never seen all the issues with Helton. Maybe you can probably
He's
explain.
just like incompetent. I mean, he's made so many dumb, like a lot of times he's been in charge of like adjudicating penalties and stuff, and he's just so wildly inconsistent with how he determines these things. And he kind of just will nod his head and do whatever Brian France tells him to. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing him gone either. Actually, pretty much like the entire upper echelon of NASCAR could just all get fired or die or something, and that'd be a good place to start.
I could probably restart. Just take away the stupid chase system. What we had 2003 and before was already good enough.
Yeah, I
Wasn't for
agree.
that. Wasn't for that shit. Gordon would have been a 7-time champion.
I mean, yeah, the list of champions would have been a lot more interesting.
Edwards would have 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So I'm looking at the rule I was talking about earlier. If you apparently the rule is if you fail the post race inspection, you actually lose your ability. You lose. You know how like you get the automatic grant to the next round for a win. You actually you lose that if you fail one of the 2 inspections.
Well, that's.
But I don't know exactly what they're. But then again, I don't see what that means like for a Kevin Harvick style cheat.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like that. I like that they're actually doing something about failing inspections because historically it really hasn't mattered. I mean, you could win a race with an illegal car and nothing happens really. It's just kind of stupid that they don't implement that the entire season. I mean, or implement something analogous like an actual severe points penalty or something like that. Or maybe nullify their qualifying position for the next week or something. But
All right, I think we're going a little off track. I think the next one is Hamlin. This was actually, if you look at his Chicagoland stats, it's actually interesting. So 10 starts, 1 win, 2 top 5s, and 4 top 10s. And his average finish, this is the defending champion of this race, the defending winner of this race, by the way, 17.1. 17.1. Like he's very polarized. Like his finishes are very polarizing. It's either he either does very well or he has just a horrendous finish, probably a DNF finishing in the 30s.
yeah, Denny Hamlin's not. He's not really that great on the mile and a half anymore. I mean, last year I think was honestly just kind of a fluke because he led, like what 5 laps. He still won it fairly, but like they didn't run well the whole race. They just were kind of in the right position at the right time. But yeah, like this year, they've been pretty quick on the short tracks, but the mile and a halves, they haven't really impressed me much. But who knows? I mean, they could have just been, trying all sorts of experimental setups after they won Daytona just to see what happens. So they may not have brought their best stuff yet.
I think I've said this before. Despite everything, I do because Hamlin's had a great year so far this year. I think he has what it takes to win because as long as he's in the top 4 at Richmond, I mean at Homestead, he's won at Homestead twice. Looks like he'd be one of the favorites. Wouldn't really surprise me at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
but then again, he's known to choke. He choked at Homestead in 2010, and we all thought he was probably one of the favorites back in 2014 to be the winner of that championship 4. Just didn't work out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. 2014 wasn't. That was his team's fault, really. Because he really had that thing won until one of those cautions came out when they stayed out and everybody else got tires. They screwed themselves over there. But yeah, I mean, if he'll be strong, but like I said, it's so hard to predict who's going to make it to that Final 4, only because like the way the races have evolved now, your running position for the first 90% of a race is irrelevant to where you finish now. I mean, it's like somebody who runs like 20th the whole race and then get a couple of good restarts at the end, and suddenly they get like a top 3. So, that's kind of the way those races are.
That's to be fair though. That's always that. There's some tracks where you could find that a little fun, like at Auto Club. Like at auto
Yeah.
clubs, that's kind of where, yeah, that's just because of tire strategy. Like some guys go with all four tires, some with two. That was like the big Brad Keselowski win from a year ago, I think. That
Yeah.
was like, to be fair, I found that to be one of the more fun races throughout that year. But I feel like there should only be specific tracks where that should be allowed. Like if that kind of shit happens, at Dover, then it's like, come on, man, like that. It's not really an
Mhm.
authentic race.
I mean, that's kind of how it goes, though, a lot of time. But whatever. It's mostly just because they throw cautions much more frequently now. You get more and more restarts, and that's when the chaos ensues. Especially when there's so much pressure on the drivers to maintain their position or get one extra spot.
If it wasn't for that shit, maybe Gordon probably would have reached 100 victories because he's not very good at restarts. He wasn't really ever meant to be a restart driver. He's just the guy who gets the good runs, in those long term
Yeah.
in the very long green flag runs.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is Harvick, 15 starts, 2 wins. Both of those 2 wins were actually the first two Sprint Cup races, 2001 and 2002 at Chicagoland. 8 top 5s and 9 top 10s. So, and average finish 11.7. Probably one of his best tracks. And the reason why that it's at 11.7 is because of his 42nd place finish last year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's the past 2 years with Stuart Haas. He's kind of been like the fastest guy on the mile and a halfs, if not almost everywhere. So, but especially Chicago, like they've had really really strong showings the past 2 years. So I it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him like dominate that race from the pole or something like that. I mean, but then again, you could just have a repeat of last year where somebody door slams him, cuts his tire down, and he's out of the race. So
Shove Johnson. That was awesome.
yeah, I
That's
don't know.
probably the thing is, like, when most people complain to Jimmy Johnson, I just think they're being bitches. Like, even though I hate Jimmy Johnson, I find most of the complaints against him illegitimate. But that one was legitimate. I like that. That was actually enjoyable. The shove right at the end of the race towards
Yeah,
Johnson when he tried to visit his hauler.
yeah, I don't know. Kevin Harvick just seems like he acts like a tough guy on the radio and whatnot, but I don't know. He's not very confrontational. I mean, he did go up to Johnson and everything, but like on the radio, he was talking about how he's going to kick his ass and punch him in the face, and he shows up to the hauler and just like gives him that little shove, and that's it. It's like,
He's more of
well,
a talk the talk kind of guy.
yeah, yeah, but I don't know. I mean, they're gonna be tough. Um, this they actually run really, really, really well in the chase. I mean, they have a lot of really good tracks for him there. So
This time though with Harvick, like with 2014, he had such a weak showing before the chase, and then he really picked up his game like once the chase started. This time Harvick's been strong all year round. I'm a little surprised he only has 2 wins this year, uh,
yep.
but he's been able
But
to keep up the top fives.
that's how he was last year.
Yep,
Um,
all the second place finish. It seems like this format's probably I mean, it's hard to tell only after 2 seasons, but it seems like this format's best. It's best attuned to him.
yeah, no, I agree.
Next one is Carl Edwards. I would 11 starts at Chicagoland, no wins, 4 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Yeah, like he's never finished between position 6 and 10. All his top 10s are top 5s. Average finish is 15.1, pretty much the same as Hamlin. Very polarized finishes. He does either very well or just fucks it up. And
Y-
with Edwards, he's had a very poor second half of the season so far, especially the last couple of races.
Yeah, no, I've come to hate Carl Edwards after I picked him for my fantasy team, and he just like completely sucked for like the entire summer, pretty much. Like I picked him after he won Bristol and Richmond back to back,
Oh
and
man,
then he's just like, I mean, he's been awful. So
probably
it's
not.
hard for me to be impartial about this.
He
But
just
yeah, I don't know. He's never really even been that good on mile and a half outside of maybe Texas.
well, Atlanta when they had the chase in Atlanta, but
Yeah,
doesn't do very well at Charlotte though. That's always been the puzzling thing for me. Like, how does he do so well at the other tri-ovals? But Charlotte, I mean, he had that one Coca-Cola 600 win last year, but that was just
yeah,
kind of luck.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they don't have speed. They haven't had speed really since Richmond, the first Richmond race this year. But that very well could be just they're testing a lot of brand new ideas and whatnot. They're not sticking with what works, so they might show up to Chicago with a more conventional package that's got a lot of speed. So who knows? But yeah, I don't know. Edwards is so inconsistent that I don't know what you can say about him other than that.
I don't expect him to make it into the Elimination Eight.
No, I don't. I don't know. I don't think so either. Honestly, I don't think they've just been too slow this season. I mean, by and large, I don't know, and not only that, but they like Edwards has a really really strong tendency to run like top 5 or top 10 for about the first third of the race or whatever, and then like
Fall
wreck
apart.
himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the
Now,
the last 2/3, he just like gets shuffled back to 20th because of speeding penalty, and then wrecks with 10 to go or something like that. So
now here's what might help him. Here's one good news for Edwards for Chicagoland. Last year he got second behind Hamlin, so maybe could be looking for a good race. But I don't see him to be. I look for him for Chicagoland to be his best, but I don't really see him doing well at Loudon or Dover. Maybe he'll barely squeak into the top 12, and then just kind of fall apart after that into the contender 12. And next one, Truex, man, like he sucks at Chicagoland. 10 starts, no wins, no top fives, just 2 top tens. Average finish 16.6. But this year, Truex is strong. Okay, like last year, yeah, championship 4, but kind of lucky that Joey Logano that someone crashed Joey Logano at Martinsville to really put him in that spot, and then was never really a factor at Homestead. Really, and people were really expecting a lot out of him from Homestead because that's supposedly one of his better tracks. But this year with Truex, especially moving over to Toyota, you can see how that's working out pretty well for him. First season in which he has more than one win. First
yeah,
multi-win season.
yeah, I think he's actually been the fastest guy in mile and a half all year long. The team is still a bit clumsy with how they close out races, and they get way too many penalties, late stage. But they've had arguably the fastest car at almost every track, every mile and a half they've gone to. Like Kansas, they were, sat on the pole, like were pretty much untouchable until they had like a penalty or something like that, or a loose wheel or whatever.
Who won? I actually forgot who won the Kansas Spring Race.
Kyle Busch.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, but I mean, like even I don't really remember how he fared at Las Vegas, but obviously like at Charlotte where he led all but 8 laps.
That was.
He was much faster at Kentucky than just about anybody. He's like the only car that can pass. And he led most of the laps at Texas. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't surprise at all. I mean, like I think he's going to be exceptionally strong in the next 10 races.
I think I think he will at least get into the Elimination 8, but I think it'll be he might have a shot for championship 4, but I think luck helped him out last year, but it could always be a bitch to you the next year.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, okay, so next one is Kenseth, 15 starts. He's one of a few drivers who started at Chicagoland all 15 times they've raced there in the Sprint Cup Series. 1 win back in 2013, 4 top 5s, 7 top 10s, and average finish 11.3. Actually, just a little bit better than Kyle Busch. People don't really pay much attention to Kenseth at Chicagoland, but he's probably one of the guys to look out for. In fact, I actually predict he's the guy I'm predicting to win Chicagoland, believe it or not. I see that this is I think he's going to come a little better prepared after last week. I think it's not exactly it's probably not the most intelligent analysis, but that tends to happen a lot where drivers who crash out the week before tend to be dominant. Just the next week, it just happens usually.
Yeah, unless it's Carl Edwards.
Unless it's Carl Edwards.
Just like crashes out every week now. It seems like. Yeah, I don't know. Kenseth is. I'm really hesitant to say anything about it because he's also been, like he's had really, really strong showings at some points in the season, and then other times he's been really slow at places where you wouldn't expect him to be.
Yeah, but he's been kind of the opposite of Edwards. He got up to a really weak first half, but he's been really strong the second half.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he is in a Toyota, so obviously he's gonna have speed, but I don't know. I mean, like he's not run that. See, his last one was at New Hampshire. He hasn't really run that well since then. He hasn't had any like dominant showings as far as I remember either. So it seems like that team just doesn't have like consistent speed that you kind of need at this point in the season. But I don't know.
I see him revamping himself a little bit for the chase. Again, maybe he's doing the same thing as Edwards, just kind of toying around with different packages. But Chicago, I think it depends on the track, and I do think Chicagoland's going to look pretty good for him. Again, my prediction to win. That's just me. Do you have just out of curiosity? Do you have any of the drivers that we've gone over? Do you have any prediction for the winner at Chicagoland at this point?
Not of the ones we talked about.
All right. Next one is Jimmy Johnson. 14 starts at Chicagoland, no wins. This is one of 7 top 5s though, and believe it or not, like I think 4 of those top 5s were second place finishes. So it could have been. Maybe it's 3. It's either 3 or 4. He's known to finish second at Chicagoland, but he never. It's always so hard for him to get that win. And he's got 10 top 10s. His average finish is 9.6. Probably one of the best drivers at Chicagoland, and he does not have a win there.
Yeah, he's got the best driver rating, I think, of anybody.
But ever since that second win at California, it's just been downhill all the way since.
That's exactly what I've been thinking. Like
the worst part is his pit crew. It's like every race, it's a penalty. It's either too fast exiting or sometimes they make body mod. They do that. They're notorious for trying to make the illegal body modifications.
No, I know. I mean, Chad Knaus is notorious for cheating. Straight up, he's like been caught more than any crew chief in history. So they're always like pushing the envelope.
Yeah, I like the new camera system because God, it really makes you wonder like how many times Johnson was probably doing this beforehand with the body modifications.
Yeah. It's. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I agree. Like even with his 2 wins this season, I mean, when you think about him, like Atlanta was because he's short pit, by like 15 laps or something like that. So he was running like outside the top 5, I think. And then Auto Club, he won it on a green white checkered.
Yeah,
so it's not even like he runs up front, and then wins. He's actually like been like a 10th place car at most tracks this year.
I think in terms of point, like overall driver standings, if you don't include all the wins, like because really this whole like I'm going in order based on like how they finished in the season, but I'm starting with Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski because they were the ones with 4 wins. That's kind of a dumb system. But if we were to go by the 2003 system, Johnson would be I think either 10th or 11th in points right now.
Yeah. I mean they've been slow. It's not even like they've had bad luck. They've just been slow. I mean, Michigan, the second Michigan race is like the only race I can remember where they actually led a substantial number of laps. Everywhere else they've just been kind of lagging behind the whole race.
Just been a hard year for Hendrick. Just been a really hard year for Hendrick.
Yeah, that's true.
Even with Gordon, like no top 10s. I mean, I would have expected at least one top 10 by now. And I think I think he will at least get a top 5 at Martinsville. He might
Yeah,
be, I think he has a shot to win at Martinsville. I just, it's Martinsville. Come on, it's
yeah. He always has a shot to win there.
he should at least have 12 wins at Martinsville, but it will be nice to see if he has a shot to at least get that elusive 10th win. It's like Johnson has 10 wins at Dover. Like there's always that one track you want to see them get double-digit wins. I know
Yeah.
Waltrip was notorious for doing that on the short tracks, Bristol and Martinsville.
Hmm.
Kind of hoping Gordon can get into that elite club. It's kind of nice to know he has one more shot at it. Maybe some more. Uh,
Yeah.
Next one is Joey Logano, who I think this is surprising. Everybody I'll go over Chicagoland stats first. 7 starts, no wins, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, average finish 15.3. Again, just not that good. Just slightly better than Truex, if anything.
Yeah. I mean, Logano is just like he's so good on restarts that he can, I mean, I think that's how he's kind of cemented so many of these top tens. It's just they run like 15th to 20th at a lot of these tracks. Maybe higher up than that. I mean, but they've kind of been sliding recently. But he gets really good restarts, on these late race cautions, and they get top tens out of it. So, they certainly haven't had the speed to run up front. In the late half of the season, at the very beginning they were all right, but yeah, they've been pretty slow lately. So I'd kind of worry, but that's kind of how they were last year until the chase came, and then he won like 3 in a row. So I don't know. You could see that happen again.
Man, well, it's easy to do that when you spin Kenseth out like that.
Yeah, and you get like the worst ruling on the Talladega finish, like of all time.
Oh yeah.
It's like one of the greatest Talladega races and one of the worst finishes.
Oh yeah. Talladega kind of. If it wasn't for Gordon's win, like the following week at Martinsville, I may have, and of course the subsequent, Kenseth retaliation, the season may have just been ruined at Talladega. Like
Yeah.
Martinsville was like the saving grace to even make
Yeah.
Homestead watchable. In all honesty,
Yep. Yeah,
and that's
pretty
and that's
much.
despite the fact that it was Gordon's last. Well, we thought it was Gordon's last race at the time, but
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think for the chase, I think I kind of agree with some of your points. He could be strong in the. I mean, I don't expect him to be really that strong in the contender 12. I don't even expect him to really get a win this chase round, but I do expect him to go to the elimination 8.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, next one. Here we go. It's Larson.
Hells yeah. So he's
All
my
right.
pick to win Chicago,
Yeah,
actually.
I figured you got you. Okay, it's now again not very many stats since he's only raced there twice. 2 wins, 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, and average finishes. I mean, again, it's only it's 5. Third in 2014, 7th in 2015. You remember 2014, that battle with Jeff Gordon, which was epic, by the way. Just
Yeah, that was in a backup car too.
yeah. Oh yeah,
So,
and Gordon came up to him, kind of congratulated him, just on giving him a good battle.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
I
well, I
mean,
mean,
he was so close to spinning Gordon out, like that was crazy.
yeah.
He put a lot of risk. He threw himself into the wall, but it was still something worth commemorating, if anything.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I don't pick him just because of that. I think on the mile and a half, they've actually been really the only car outside of Gibbs, I think, or outside of Toyota that has consistent speed. It's just at the beginning of the season they had such terrible luck. Like he had probably the fastest car at Kansas and got wrecked out with like 20 to go when he was third or something like that.
And Auto Club, that was a pretty infamous wreck right there. It was probably one of the best wrecks I've seen all year long. But he probably he could have been a contender for a top 10, maybe even a top 5. Had he not crashed early on.
But yeah, like even later, like he ran pretty well at the Coke 600. I think they kind of slipped back towards the end of the race, but towards the beginning, like he was running, he had a strong showing. And like they were all right at Kentucky, but Kentucky's, too different compared to any of the tracks in the chase. But I mean, even outside of that, they're running like historically he sucked at Richmond, and they pull out a second place last week. He wins at Michigan. He gets a third at Darlington. I mean, he's had 3 consecutive top 3 finishes.
He is looking, I know, like, and again,
so
like,
he is the most consistent driver out there
and it's
at
always
the moment.
And if you're like a Larson fan, it's had to have been really hard watching Larson like the last couple of chases, like just knowing that he could have been a really good contender, and knowing he can't really do much about that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but
he finished 5th at Homestead last year, just ahead of Gordon. I mean, that's like if this guy goes to Homestead, like he is gonna be. There's some serious talk about him winning it. Like,
yeah.
But I don't know. I just because he's the first timer, I think he'll get past the Challenger 16. Contender 12, I think he'll struggle. I mean, just because I think Talladega is such a bitch, and really that I think maybe one of. I mean, he does well at both Charlotte and Kansas, but I expect at least one of those times he's not going to do very well. And like, as I said, doesn't really do that well at the restrictor plates. So that again, I'm maybe being a little harsh here. But I don't really expect him to make it to Homestead. But if he does, he'll be a contender. I'll just put it that way.
I actually do think he can make it all the way, only because like places that 2014, 2015 that they ran pretty poorly at, like Martinsville and Richmond, Darlington. Well, he was okay at Darlington, but just a lot of places that they've been kind of slow at. They've actually been one of the quickest cars. As of over the past couple of weeks, he had that second place at or third place at Martinsville. So I think like if you group all the tracks together, he had second place at Dover this year. Like he's run really well at each of those tracks that are in each of those rounds. So I could actually see him going all the way. But then again, he could have just as easily have something stupid happen and get wrecked every week or something, get knocked out round 1. Who knows?
Maybe. Like I said, I see him for I don't know, like those 3 just through the contender 12. It's like Charlotte, Kansas, Talladega. I think he'll have a good run in one of them, maybe finish outside the top 10 in the other mile and a half and just get screwed at Dega. Not necessarily due to crash, but just through shuffling. It's a hard, even some of the best drivers have trouble getting in the top 20. Like I think was it a couple years ago, Jeff Gordon just barely got into the Elimination 8, and he got like a 26th. I think it was like 26th place finish at Dega, and just barely finished, barely clinched it.
Yeah.
Dega's cool, man. That's just the sad reality. So next one, again, this is probably the best driver at Chicagoland, but just because he hasn't really been a consistent driver over the last 3 years, I imagine it'll be difficult for him. Tony Stewart, 14 starts at Chicagoland, 3 wins, most wins out of any driver, not just active, but throughout history, through NASCAR history. I mean, they've only been racing there since 2001, but still, 8 top 5s, 10 top 10s, average finish 8.1. But again, like very impressive stats. But Stewart, not just the last couple weeks. I would have
the last 3 years he's sucked.
I mean, he was good during the summer. I mean, not just like with the lucky win at Sonoma, but like I was impressed with his runs at really at
New Hampshire.
At New
Hampshire, he had second, I think.
Yeah, New Hampshire did great at New Hampshire. Did really good at home. Did pretty good at Pocono, and I think he did. He did pretty good, I think, even for Indy. Like I expected him to do a lot worse, just because I think I kind of expected him to finish outside the top 20, like because of the penalty that he got. But he knows how to fight his way back, even through adversity.
Yeah, well, I predict him finishing 40th and Ryan Newman finishing 39th at Chicago.
You're insane.
I think Newman is going to take him out. At least I hope so. That would be amazing.
I don't know. Maybe he'll just have the Gordon factor. Maybe some drivers might go a little easy on him because it's his last few seasons. But then, I mean, Stewart's always – the thing with Gordon is I don't even think many of the drivers cut him that much slack. I mean, I expected more drivers to cut him slack at Homestead because it was his last race, but they didn't, man.
No.
Like, you remember McMurray, he kept mirror driving him, and I'm like, Gordon was pissed off, and I'm just like, what the hell? It's his last race. Come on.
Yeah.
I expected that. So, but Stewart's always been kind of an asshole. He's pissed off all these drivers over the accumulation of so many years. He you have to think, they're not going to cut him. They're going to be a lot harder
Yeah,
on
I know.
him.
This is like, one of their last chances to
This is
get
their
back
last
at him.
chance to throw him. This is the last chance to spit it back at his face.
Yeah. But even if he doesn't get wrecked, that team has been relatively slow. I mean, they've, barely been beating Danica for half of the season. So I don't know. And I mean, now they're up against the most competitive teams, in the garage. So I don't see them really making it that far. They just haven't been strong enough.
I see him getting into the contender 12 and nothing past that, just because these three tracks, Chicagoland, New Hampshire, Dover, those are three of his best.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then he sucks at Charlotte, really sucks at he's all right at Kansas. He's got one win, but not really much else past that. And he sucks at Dega. In fact, I still believe to this day that win at Dega in 2008 was stolen from Reagan Smith.
Yeah.
That was stolen.
I think most people would agree.
That was bullshit. Like he was totally forced behind that line, and they didn't. And you know what? Yeah, Junior was forced behind the line, under the line in 2003, and nobody complained then.
Yeah.
Junior rules, man, right? Fucking hate him. But yeah, by the way, I still think Junior should have won that race in 2003. I think there is a legitimate case for the force rule. They just didn't want to apply it to Reagan Smith because, doesn't exactly have much notoriety.
That was probably Mike Helton calling that one.
Fuck Helton, yeah.
He used to be the president of Talladega, so it might actually be true. Who knows? I mean, I don't think the president of the racetrack, determines penalties or anything like that, but
now we get into the drivers that these are the ones some of these I don't predict to make it past the Challenger 16. Kurt Busch is one I do not believe will get past the Challenger 16, but we'll get into that later. Kurt Busch, 15 starts, 0 wins, 2 top 5s, 9 top 10s, average finish 15.6. I mean, the 9 top 10s out of 15 are pretty impressive, but he always hangs out kind of near the edge of the top 10. He's never a contender at Chicagoland. Never has been. I think he's in the same position as Stewart, just not very consistent throughout the year. I mean, it's not like 2014 where he just sucks all year and he gets one lucky win. I mean, I feel like he's earned his way into the chase, but not enough to the point where I honestly consider him to be a contender.
Yeah, they haven't had speed on the mile and a half this season. I mean, they haven't had it much of anywhere really, but especially the mile and a halves. I mean, he's not bad at Dover.
He's won at Dover. I know he won there in 2011. Yeah. I don't know.
And he's pretty good at I mean, he's all right at New Hampshire, but I don't know. I mean, the way that these races have played out over the past 2 years, like I said, I mean, the guys that run top 5 all race long finish outside the top 10, and the guys that run outside the top 10 finish in the top 5. So, I mean, remember Chicago last year? Kurt Busch was leading on the final restart, and I don't remember where he finished, but he fell back pretty quickly. So
that was Gordon, I think. He was in the second position. And
no, Gordon was second. Kurt Busch was first.
Yeah. What the hell happened to Gordon?
Hamlin swept by both of them.
I don't understand the whole Gordon thing. He fell back like a fucking rock.
Well, that's because he just he's arguably the worst driver out there on restarts.
He is, yeah.
I mean, he just as soon as somebody puts him 3 wide, he just hits the brake pedal. So
he's, yeah. I think that was always the problem with Gordon in his last few years as a full-time starter. It's I get why he wanted to play it a little more conservatively, but he did it to a point where he really just kept digging himself into the hole he could never climb out of.
Yeah, I mean, now Joe Logano's proved that restarts are probably 3/4 of the race. I mean, in terms of the final outcome, just because look at Richmond. Look how many restarts they had towards the end of that race. I mean, it was it was one every 3 laps for a little while. That's really needs to be these guys' focus more often, because it's not terribly easy to pass at mile and a half now. Even with lower downforce, I mean, they're still pretty aero sensitive. So you really just have to, earn your paycheck on the restarts.
All right. Well, I know we didn't want to get here, but we have to talk about it anyway. Chris Buescher, first timer at Chicagoland in the Sprint Cup car, so nothing really to say there. I did go through his Xfinity stats: four races, no wins, one top five, three top tens, and an average finish of 8. That's not really much to say because I don't really think your success on the Xfinity series really tells you much about how you do in the Sprint Cup.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm actually picking Chris Buescher to be the champion this year, but
you're just kidding.
well, I don't know. I mean, I want it to happen. I want him to make that Final Four just to make a complete joke out of this entire format.
I know, just so we can piss off the rest. Yeah, it'll
It honestly wouldn't surprise me.
France,
it wouldn't surprise me that much just to see him, like, just luckily scrape by each round by not getting wrecked, because that's kind of what happens every year now. It's like, all the good drivers just wreck out. It's not even like they're slow. They wreck or they have mechanical failures and they get eliminated. And then somebody like, Ryan Newman in 2014 with 30 laps led all season makes it to Homestead.
And finishes second.
Yeah, so I could definitely see Chris Buescher. Like, if he goes all the way, that would oh man, that would be fantastic.
He's gonna finish like 20. He's gonna finish like 25th or 26th in all three of them. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
I mean, granted to Buescher, I think he'll be a great driver maybe in the years to come. I mean, he definitely surprised me in a couple other apps, not just with Pocono, the lucky Pocono win, but that 5th place finish at Bristol, that was impressive. That was something to watch. And he had I think he finished 17th at Darlington. Again, at least that was at least a good effort for a time.
Yeah, no, he definitely runs far better than that team has historically run. He's a very good driver.
He's been busting his ass ever since he won Pocono. Like he's at least shown that he has the potential to be a serious driver. And this is good for. I'll just say this. This is good for his career. But come on, Front Row Motorsports, give me a break.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. But I agree with you. Like, if something happens to the point where he's, in the Final Four, just to piss off, just to really put the shitter on Brian France, maybe it'll get him to.
Yeah. My dream Homestead race now has been for the top 4 contenders to all wreck on the first lap, and the rest of the championship be determined by like who gets out of the garage first. So like running up. That's what I would love to see.
That'll be that'll be the true end of the system.
And then they'll come back with something dumber. Like the finale would be at Talladega or something.
Oh, no. Oh, maybe they'll do something along the lines where it's like, okay, maybe they'll make 15. How about this? They make 16 chase races, and whoever is the worst finisher among the chasers is out. And they just make that the rule for every single race. That would be the worst, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
15 race. Oh, sorry, a 16 race.
Yeah.
It would be 15, wouldn't it? I'm still trying to. No, it would be a 15 race chase. And like I said, last one among the chasers is out. That, honestly, that might be better than the current system it is now that I think of it. But I don't know. It would give drivers some incentives to crash people out early. If you don't. If Brad Keselowski pissed you off the week before, like, what's really stopping you from knocking that fucker into the wall on lap 3?
Yeah. Actually, now that you mention that, like, I'm actually extremely disappointed that Gordon hasn't used, like, his provisional driver status as like a way of retaliating against everybody that's ever pissed him off, because there's 0 ramifications for him now. Like, he's not in the championship hunt. They don't care about points. Like, he could just wreck anyone he wants and get away with it. So I don't really know why he hasn't done that yet. Maybe he's saving it.
Hey, Brad, remember that shit at Texas 2 years ago?
That'd be a great way to end his career. It's just like wreck, run like a bowling ball at Martinsville and just take out everyone.
You want to? Oh god, don't go full blown Brian Vickers, man. Don't go full blown Brian Vickers at Martinsville.
That would be great. Or like Montoya.
Or Montoya. Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of the 24, next one, we're gonna have 3 more to go. Chase Elliott. Just because I have a bias towards Chase Elliott, I do predict him to go into the Contender 12, and that's it. Just because I think he will. I think he's just going to be the surprise factor. Again, first ever. This is going to be his first Cup race at Chicagoland. But again, I picked up his Xfinity stats. But like Buescher with 4 starts, but he's got 1 win. That's 1 top 5, which was his win, and 2 top 10s. His average finish there is 9.8 in Xfinity. All right, he was doing good. Again, I don't know really what to expect at Chicagoland, but I expect him to be a bit of a surprise. I think he can get a top 10. He tends to surprise people at some of these tracks. I think Chicagoland could very well be one of them. I expect him to do pretty well at New Hampshire. He was doing great at New Hampshire until he wrecked back in June. And that was July, sorry. And Dover, I don't know what was his. God, I have to look back.
He was third.
Third at Dover, right? Yeah, I know he did good at Dover. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Again, maybe he'll get like he'll just barely squeak by into the contender 12, but I expect him to do pretty well there. I don't expect him to do well in the contender 12 just because. I mean, what is it? That's Charlotte, Kansas, and Talladega, which is a bitch. Those tracks are especially hostile to the newcomers.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that team has been on a downward spiral after probably June. I mean, they had that good run at Michigan,
and the only other good run they really had was at Michigan the second time.
They've been wrecking out a lot and just running. They've just been having really bad finishes.
Doesn't seem like they also have a very impressive pit crew. Like, I know that was my complaint about last season. Like, I always complained about Gordon's pit crew.
Yeah, his pit crew last year was terrible.
And it's the same pit crew for
consistently lose like 3 or 4 spots every stop is kind of embarrassing.
I know. I don't know. I mean, I think Gustafson's a nice guy. I just don't think he's a good crew chief.
Yeah, I don't know. He makes a lot of like dumb strategy calls.
Oh,
that's the
God.
thing. He's pretty good at building cars. He's reasonably good at like pit road adjustments and stuff like that. But his strategy calls are all like more often than not, they're just retarded.
Remember that shit at Phoenix? I think it was like the 4th race of the year. It was at Phoenix.
Yeah.
Like he was running 3rd. Gustafson calls him for 4 tires, and he ends up finishing 9th.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking to myself, what in the hell was he thinking?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. But we'll see. I mean, Chase has the benefit of like not sucking on restarts. So I actually do see that team. I mean, that team has probably like ran better than Gordon did last year up to this point of the season.
I don't know about that. Gordon actually had a pretty strong second half.
Yeah.
Considerably strong. I'll just put it that way.
His chase was actually pretty good.
His chase was really unexpected. I did not expect him to go into the Elimination 8. He really surprised me back at the Contender 12. Consistent top 10s at Charlotte, at Kansas. Then he just stayed up front all day at Talladega. Yeah. Really impressed me that time. And then, of course, I expected him to be a contender at Martinsville. I thought he had a good shot at winning. I thought maybe, he had maybe a 1-in-3 shot. And, I'm glad I was right about that. He was going to be a contender. Absolutely. Just probably one of the best Martinsville races that's ever been run.
It was pretty good. It had a lot of everything.
Oh, yeah. And the finish at night was really just before, just in the waning hours of of the light, right as it goes to dark. Like that was the icing on the cake too. Like all the elements.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he was good also at Texas and Phoenix too. Top 10. I mean, he finished in the top 10 in his last 7 races.
Yeah, they've always, like Gustafson specifically as a crew chief has always been good at Phoenix, no matter who he's the crew chief for. I think they won there with Jeff Gordon, like in one of their first races together.
Yeah, and he also won there with Mark Martin.
Yeah, and they've always been quick. I don't know. I just, for whatever reason, I haven't seen much in Chase Elliott that's like really, really impressive. I mean, he's had like occasional moments where he does well, but I haven't seen anything that's like kind of quite as impressive as like Larson's.
He
Chase,
did better
his rookie season. I mean, he wasn't in the chase, but like his rookie season, he had so many like impressive runs with a team that historically has kind of sucked.
I just want to remind you that if you go by 2003 standings, Elliott's doing better than Larson at this point. Okay, I
I
just
know
want
he
to
had a lot
remind
of
you.
DNFs. He had like so many tire failures in the second half of
Doesn't
the
matter.
season.
Doesn't matter to me. I care about the raw numbers, man.
No,
Just
you're
want
wrong. The numbers are wrong.
to. Oh yeah.
Kyle Larson's
I'm
the next
having a
Richard Petty. I'm calling
I'm
it right
having a
now.
physics student tell me the numbers are wrong.
Yeah, that's how you know that
Yeah.
you're actually wrong.
Okay, so last two, Austin Dillon, 43rd at Chicago last year. Just want to remind people that. Well, yeah, two starts in his Cup series at Chicago in the Cup series at Chicagoland. No wins, no top fives, no top tens. His average finish is 29.5. Again, that's only two races, which means that God, that means he got so if he got 43rd in 2015, he got 16th there in 2014. Don't expect much. In fact, I'd be amazed if he actually got into the top 20 at this point. If I really had to go off of previous finishes. He doesn't really do well. I mean, he does good at Martinsville, but that doesn't really mean he's going to do good at Loudon. He's also never been historically well at. He's never been historically well at Dover either. Yeah, I don't. Larson is not. I don't think he's going to make it past the Challenger 16.
You mean Dylan? Yeah,
Dylan, did I say Dylan?
you said Larson.
Larson, what's wrong with you? Yeah,
Blasphemy.
Dylan. Probably going to find some way to blame Paul Menard for all his problems again.
Yeah, Dylan. Like they they were reasonably fast at the beginning of the season. But like for what that team has typically run. But yeah, I agree. Like they've just been like mediocre, honestly. And I don't think Dylan is really that great of a driver.
It,
And not only that, but you can only like keep throwing tantrums and stuff
this is a
towards your
guy in the
team before
three
they just
car.
get fed up with it. And
Yeah, he's being a child in the three car. It's like, come on, man. Like, if you're gonna be in the three car, at least live up to the spirit of it.
yeah,
Live
just like
up,
wreck everyone.
live up to the fucking spirit of it. Don't be a child, fucking man child.
Well,
My little rant, but
I
God,
blame I blame Richard Childress for all that, but
yep. Oh, like I
giving
said,
him all those like pristine rides in the Truck Series and Xfinity Series, like straight out of the gate.
and I mean, what in that last race at Richmond when Paul Miller was complaining, like they had to get First off, he complained about Childress, like, Where's my odor? Like that.
Yeah,
And he has to calm Menard down. Like when you need to get your grandpappy to tell your own teammates to cut you a break, that something's up. You know that this is not a very stable foundation they're going off of.
yeah.
It's only going to be I mean, I at least have some respect for Paul Menard. I think he did pretty good last year with making the chase. I've always thought he was a pretty good driver. I think he would actually be a pretty big loss for Childress. It's only be a matter of time before Newman gets pissed off to the point where he leaves. Yeah, I think as long as the Dillons are around, that's not going to be good news for Childress.
Yep.
Which is kind of nice because I've never liked Childress.
Yeah, I mean Kevin Harvick was like really the only strong element of that team for like a decade.
Jeff Burton is
So
all right,
yeah, he was okay in like what 2010.
2008.
Well, yeah, there was one year where Jeff Burton actually won a few races. But other than that, like Kevin Harvick was like the main attraction, and even then, he was just like a top 10 driver at best most weeks. I mean, occasionally he would win, but most of the time he was, anyway.
All right, so last one is McMurray. This guy just flat out sucks at Chicagoland. I mean, it's unbelievable. 13 starts, 0 wins, just 1 top 5, and only 3 top 10s. His average finish is 20.8. He flat out sucks. Okay, there's nothing more to say really. When you talk about McMurray at Chicagoland.
They were really fast in 2014, and then I think he like hit the wall or something, and that kind of cost them their race. Like I think they were leading when it happened. I don't remember how he ran last year. But yeah, McMurray,
Just like last year, not going to make it past the Challenger 16. He came close last year. Junior got that pass on him at Dover.
I think he'll make it past the first round.
Real,
Because I think that organization as a whole, like Chip Ganassi, they are so much better this year than they've really like ever been, honestly.
or well, just because he gets
So
both of them in, but I don't know. The problem, I think, if McMurray gets into the contender 12, he's got a good shot at the elimination 8, just because those 3 tracks, Talladega, Kansas, and maybe not so much Kansas, but Charlotte. Like he's won twice at Talladega, twice at Charlotte, and that doesn't even include the All Star race that he's won at Charlotte back in 2014.
yeah,
Definitely be good enough. But the three tracks of Chicagoland, New Hampshire, and Dover, I think, are just that big obstacle he just can't quite get past.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, McMurray's actually like not bad at Dover, um,
He's not bad
but
at Dover, but I think
yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just hesitant to write him off because I think he's like probably one of the most underrated drivers
oh, he is.
out there. I
Yes.
think his team usually sucks and they rarely give him good cars. But with the way that whole organization has been, like the last half of this season, like they've been actually like one of the fastest teams out there. I mean, Chip Ganassi has been one of the fastest like car owners, which it's like never happened. So I don't know. I don't see him making it to the final 4. I could see him squeezing into the third round and then getting eliminated. But yeah, I don't see him having a terribly successful chase. I think he'll
And
have probably his career best, but that's not
and
saying
even
much.
I've also said this. I almost forgot about this. Even if he gets into the elimination 8, those 3 tracks are also. I mean, not so much Phoenix, but he runs very well at Martinsville. Got second to Gordon last year,
Yeah.
and he's always run well at Texas. He has a lot of top 5s there, but he hasn't been so good at Texas over the last few years. Although that
Yeah.
could, although I mean, in a chase setting, that could definitely change.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't I think that team is I don't know. It just seems like they're kind of overdue for some strong finishes. And it seems like they're building speed at just the right time. I think he'll have, probably a good 5 races out of the 10. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see making him past the second round realistically. Maybe he gets the third round, but that's about it. But I think he'll run pretty well at Chicago anyway. They're bringing brand new cars for him and Larson. And every time they've done that this year, they've been really quick. So
All right, seems like it seems pretty good. I guess I'll probably take it off air in a minute. I think it was actually pretty fun.
yeah,
We really got through it. Well, maybe we'll try it again next week, and if we still have fun with it, we'll just see how long we can do it. Again, my goal is hopefully get through the entire chase.
yeah, I think we could.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yep.
All right. So with that being said, I think I'm gonna stop the broadcast, and hopefully we'll have fun with it next week. I think next week will just be review of Chicagoland and probably preview of Loudon.
Mm-hmm.
I always interchange between calling it New Hampshire and Loudon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.